Now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. You can beat President Putin. President Zelensky.
Well, as you just saw, President Biden making a few mistakes in his NATO speech and hour-long news conference.
Fox 5 political analyst Rick Epps joins us now. Rick, good morning.
Good morning.
There was an audible gasp in the room at the NATO, and then again at the press conference later when the
I just gasped now, so
I think we all did.
Yeah.
So all jokes aside,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
that is the concern now, and that's why we mentioned Scott Peters, and now local leaders and his own party asking him to step down. What is your take on what is happening? This seems like in a historic moment that we're living through right now.
Yeah, it's a very concerning point in our time, troublesome definitely for the Democrats, right? And when you look at the overall scenario over just the last 6 months in terms of his slowly diminishing state, right? And I say that with all due reverence to some of the things he's accomplished, but it seems like there's something going on that no one knows about in terms of his health. Gaffes are gaffes, and certainly I've had them sitting up here. Many people have had gaffes when you misspeak, but it just seems like at this particular point in time, it seems to be exacerbated. And I'm very, very concerned, and I think that there are a lot of people on both sides, either moderate conservatives as well as the Democratic Party in general, that are terrified right now. And we've seen already this movement is slowly gaining momentum of even Democratic leadership that are going, okay, we've got a problem, and it's a big problem.
We'll talk more about the reaction to what we're hearing at home, but last week and this week with what was happening at NATO was a very, very big week. Curious to know what members of NATO are saying about this, people watching from the outside.
Well, okay, so the inside bubble, inside of NATO, the leaders were, one thing that's interesting, Biden actually did a pretty good job initially of standing up, even though he had the teleprompter, which helped tremendously, which all of them use a teleprompter. But one thing, and while there's still, much concern amongst the leaders, the concern really is built around the concern about Trump and Trump's feeling about NATO. And what Biden was able to do, surprisingly well, was to fortify the unity of the United States with its NATO allies.
Right.
And I think that was the important takeaway from really the most important takeaway outside of Ukraine from the summit was that.
And you can tell that it's top of mind internationally because one of the international reporters asked the president directly, is there a concern if President Trump goes back into office, will he, in his words, disengage the United States from NATO? Right. That the U.S. leads in NATO, so that is a major concern of other countries right now.
Absolutely. I mean, we are the primary defense-based foundation of NATO. We provide more money and assets, and even with the new policies going forward that NATO they came out of the summit, the reality is the United States is the foundation of it, and our stepping away, while it won't eradicate NATO, it certainly would put NATO into a very, very problematic state with Russia and China and, on the fringes of, being very problematic.
It's very complicated, Rick.
Oh, it's
very, very complicated.
It's incredibly messy.
So what are world leaders saying right now, the people he's standing on stage with?
I think a lot of them are holding their breath. I think they're, like for example, Hungary and Turkey are playing this brinkmanship game with Russia. They've got ties to Russia, and they have been on the fringe of trying to say that they're the two countries that, because of their relationship with Russia, can help, create this pathway to peace. But other people look at them as playing the middle ground, that they're just trying to play both sides of the road a little bit. So on one hand, you've got that playing out, this little game on the side, but you also have the rest of the leaders that are, as they now have, added Sweden to the mix. Ukraine is on the verge of becoming a NATO country. In fact, they're going to actually modify the process to bring them in early to NATO. So it's a really interesting time as they try to prepare to defend against all the various concerns, security threats of Russia and China.
The president's team had kept saying, you know, we're going to address this, we're going to address that after the NATO summit, Well, the NATO summit is now over.
Yeah.
So now looking ahead the next couple of weeks, he's
Yeah.
got more campaigning that he's going to be doing around the Midwest and
Yeah.
in battleground states. What are the options that we're looking at now? What are the different scenarios that we're looking at now? He keeps saying he's going to stay in the race, but the pressure is mounting. It seems like it's a snowball effect at this point. Can he overcome this?
Yeah.
Or what are the scenarios you're seeing over the next... The election is only 4 or 5 months away at this point.
I know. It's so, and I have to preface my comment by saying there are many people, most people who talk about this revere Joe Biden. You hear Van Jones, for example. He loves President Biden.
There's a lot of we love him, but
we love him, but exactly. You know, one of the scenarios that could play out, and you know, I mentioned to you briefly, was about, you know, if he decided to step away before the election, Kamala Harris would be the vice president, would become the president, and then she would be the incumbent going into November, which would be a pretty smart move potentially for the Democrats to do it, try to convince him now quietly behind the scenes. The other side of that is if he waits to the convention, it gets a lot messier because if somebody has to try to challenge him in the convention, that shows a breakdown in the party infrastructure. That doesn't bode well either. The advantage to getting out early potentially for Democrats, and I will share this candidly, is that one, it would probably be attractive to younger voters. It'd be attractive to those who are not happy with Biden on the relationship with Israel. So there are some upsides potentially, not, you know, and I'm saying not to not support Israel, but I'm saying if you get somebody in who's not as on the hot seat right now because of it, then you might be able to also attract the moderate conservatives who are floundering in the wind going, where do we go? Because they don't have anywhere to go.
And you start
right
reading today, now the day after, there are some Senate races in some battleground states that weren't, and now they are toss-up, and that's a big deal because it's going down the ticket that this is going to affect a lot of races. We're in mid-July. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
What happens in the next couple of months here? Does he stay in the race? Will he be the nominee in November?
Okay, so
I told you I'd put you on the
I
spot.
know it's okay. You know, it's interesting
Because it's hard
tough
to answer.
say.
Yeah, it's tough to
say
say.
because I would, you know, right now the way he's dug in, I would say the chances are very high that he's going to be the nominee.
Right.
However, you know, in my own heart of hearts, I hope that he does the right thing. He's, you know, he's a countryman. So if he does the right thing for the country, you know, I think there's, you know, he still has great gravitas to be able to affect policy. You don't have to do that sitting in that seat at that point. And I think it's safer for us in many ways to have, and the world to have somebody who's, you know, more on top. And I just think that that could be Kamala or some of the other peripheral players who in the Democratic Party. But it's going to have to happen quick if it's going to happen.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
Rick Epps will be speaking again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Good to see you.